Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cool and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore and Fray, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon, the sequel to Eye of the Dragon. Please look forward to that. So I have been hard at work playing Bayonetta 3. Now I say hard at work, but really I've been having the time of my life in general. Bayonetta 3 is awesome. This has been very unexpected, considering I would say I was probably the most unoptimistic person in the world going into this because I hated Bayonetta 2. I've been hating what Platinum's been doing like recently. I've been hating some of the culture that's been circulating about Bayonetta in the Bayonetta fan base. There's a lot of things I don't like, but now that we actually have a new release, now that we actually have a new game, and like the narrative is changing, so to speak, it's time to really talk about like Bayonetta. And now that we have like a good new installment, first of all, it's better than Bayonetta 2. And it's honestly, I'll have to like spend a lot more time playing it before I come to this decision, but I think it might actually be better than the original. And that's something I didn't even think was possible, considering how I consider the original to be one of the best action games of all time. Now, considering the fact that, Bayonetta 2, I've acknowledged this. I've put like 60 hours into that game. I've 100%ed it. I've done everything there is to do in Bayonetta 2. Bayonetta 2 is not nearly as bad as I make it out to be. Otherwise, I never would have finished it, right? Like, Bayonetta 2 is still better than, the worst Bayonetta game is still better than any of the Devil May Cries, right? And that's not even going into like the far superior first game and third game, right? Which I've gone on record saying that the first Bayonetta is better than all 5 Devil May Cry games, not including the Dante one. I'm talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4, and V, I suppose 5 or whatever we're calling it, or whatever we're calling it now. That one Bayonetta release was better than all of those games, with significantly more content, better combat, better characters, better visuals, better music, just better everything in general, right? I loved the first Bayonetta. And now that the series has continued to a third game, and the third game is looking to be successful enough that like a fourth game is very much guaranteed, I think it's time we like finally take a step back and acknowledge that we are never getting like a new Ninja Gaiden. We're never getting a new God Hand. We're never getting like a no Unimusha, and Devil May Cry simply can't compete. So by by my reckoning, and I've played all these games, I know what I'm talking about. I know, like, I'm a big enthusiast of the genre. I'm like completely unbiased when I say this. And again, like, if I wasn't unbiased, if I was biased about it, I would have declared this a long time ago. But now that it's everything's sunken in, and now that we have like enough Bayonetta releases, now that like we have had enough time to really like dwell on the topic, considering how quickly Devil May Cry 5 has gone into like bargain bins, I think it's safe to say that Bayonetta is a better action game franchise than Devil May Cry. Objectively, it doesn't have like the same up and downs in quality. It doesn't have Devil May Cry 2. It doesn't have a Devil May Cry 2 equivalent, and like it didn't really bungle the the ability to play multiple characters like Devil May Cry 4 and 5 did. So one of the things Devil May Cry fans don't bring up, which I completely despise, is that like Nero was one of the most poorly introduced characters in video game history, right? Where you spend the first half of Devil May Cry 4 playing Nero, this motherfucker that you don't know anything about or don't care about, and then like you spend the second half of the game going back through Nero's half of the game with Dante. It's like it's embarrassing. It was like if that had been a Nintendo game, people would have like destroyed Capcom over that. But because it's Devil May Cry, because it's one of the best action game series of all times, people just kind of wrote it off, right? Same with Devil May Cry 5. V's gameplay is universally like reviled among the fan base, but has anybody really like talked about that at all? Like, no, V fucking sucks. Nero is not interesting. Devil May Cry 5 just feels completely different than like the first 4 games, and nobody really cares or really talks about it. Like Devil May Cry 5 was just a poorly conceived mess from start to finish. Just like 4, just like 3, and just like 2. Like the only Devil May Cry game I think I legitimately enjoy is probably the original, and that's mostly because of the music and the atmosphere. Excuse me. It has nothing to do with the gameplay, which is simplistic, bare bones, and boring. Like, the best Devil May Cry game is infinitely less appealing to me than like the worst Bayonetta game. All right, Bayonetta has just established itself as being the superior franchise on superior hardware. And the thing I'm curious about, how long is it gonna be until people start acknowledging this? Because I think it's in the cards at this point. I don't think Itsuno is going to be around much longer. I don't think we're going to get a Devil May Cry 6. I think there's going to be like a big there are going to be big issues like continuing the Devil May Cry brand and like continuing to try to compete with Platinum Games, who, by the way, actually created the best Devil May Cry game, Devil May Cry 1. Like I don't see why I don't see how Capcom can continue this illusion that Devil May Cry is like the best action game on the market, because that it just isn't true. Like it never was. But the thing about it is that like it's the one that like normies acknowledge as being the best, even if they like never touch a Devil May Cry game, especially if they never touch a Devil May Cry game. So again, this kind of goes into what I've been saying about like the current state of modern gaming, in which you have this shit that's like pop culture popular, which everyone knows about it, everyone talks about it, everyone pretends to be a big fan of it. You know, stuff like Final Fantasy VII R, stuff like God of War 2018, stuff like Yakuza 0. Like, people will pretend to be huge, big fans of those games, even if they don't play any other games in the series or any other game like it, right? They don't like try anything different or similar or like in the same genre. Like, they're not true enthusiasts. They're blind consumer fanboys who are just consuming like the thing that the companies tell them to consume. Then you have like the actual gamers, right? People who actually like play everything and analyze it and really have like a very thorough understanding over like which game is better than what and why and who made it and like who is essential to a project and who isn't, who can go and who can stay, like who the best characters are, like the what games excel at, like visual quality. Like, there's all sorts of things that like enthusiasts talk about, but like when it comes to like the pop culture people, all you see is just like people bragging about how much a game is sold and how popular it is, and that's really about it. And that's basically what we saw with Devil May Cry 5, is that it sold a lot according to like these blind fanboys, and people stopped talking about it. That's kind of my view on it. So like Devil May Cry 5, ooh, it's the best game ever. Meanwhile, Bayonetta 3 comes out, has significantly more combat, has significantly better combat, better gameplay, a better story for sure. Better alternate characters, like more creativity. Like, I was shocked at like the sheer amount of like wild wild nonsense you get in Bayonetta 3. I was very, very impressed. Like, meanwhile, I couldn't even get like through the demo of Devil May Cry 5, right? It was just so boring, right? I just had like an extremely boring, an extremely bland time playing Devil May Cry 5. How much longer can this go on? Right? Like, if those of us who keep playing video games keep talking about Bayonetta, that is going to seep into the mainstream. And assuming that Nintendo keeps getting these games made, and assuming Platinum Games doesn't like completely kick the bucket, it's possible that like Devil May Cry may be completely dethroned in the eyes of the public as being like the king of action game franchises. Like, I really want that to happen, right? Like, I grew up being told that like Devil May Cry was like the most hardcore shit in the world, and that you were a little baby if you played Nintendo. And like seeing a Nintendo series, Bayonetta 2 and 3 like outshine Devil May Cry in a lot of ways is like very cathartic to me. Like, I am over the moon about this, you could say. Fly me to the moon, you could say, and we'll sail across the moon river. That is like that's how I feel about this. I am very, very happy that Bayonetta is on the verge of becoming more popular than Devil May Cry. But like, it's just a matter, when is it going to happen exactly? Like, even now we're seeing a lot of game journalists try to downplay Bayonetta 3, trying to like fabricate some kind of controversy. And I think this is a big reason why, is because they really do see the series as a major threat to like their ideology in a lot of ways. Like, not only is it like extremely overtly sexualized, more than I think anything else released in 2022, it also is like going against the common opinion, the common like forced meme among the community that like Nintendo censors games or like doesn't allow developers to like to make sexual content or make adult games, games for mature gamers like myself. The narrative that Switch is not a platform for adults is has been dying for really since its inception. And yet the vast majority of game journalists do not want to admit it. They don't want to bring this up at all. Like, according to them, if you're a real gamer, if you're an adult, you play an Xbox or you play a PlayStation or you play PC if you're too good for that. But you're not supposed to play Nintendo in the eyes of like the industry. And that I think more than anything is a mindset that needs to die.